Discovery.
3, 2, 1, 0, 0. Liftoff. Americans return to space as Discovery clears the tower.
Welcome to the Podcast Discovery Show, the podcast that's about other podcasts, where every single week we have a book club style discussion about a podcast. At the end of the episode, we're going to have a brand new recommendation, and we're going to talk about that one next week. I'm Kirk.
I'm Zach.
And I'm Matt. And today we are talking about a podcast that I know and love. It's called Threedom. And this is a podcast that is put on by Earwolf, the Earwolf. It is hosted by Scott Aukerman, Lauren Lapkus, and Paul F Tompkins. Scott Aukerman, of course, the inventor of Earwolf. That's not what it's called.
Founder? Yeah.
Founder, yes. Founder's
visionary.
I don't know if he's,
The visionary behind
Yeah.
Earwolf.
he's
Scott
the
Aukerman.
Bill Gates of Earwolf. And you guys might know Lauren Lapkus from that movie, The Wrong Missy, starring her and David Spade, and Paul F Tompkins, the voice actor for almost everybody ever.
Yeah.
Peanut Butter in BoJack Horseman, among so many other things. And it's a podcast that I fell into because I listen to Comedy Bang Bang pretty regularly and know that Scott Aukerman and Lauren Lapkus and Paul F Tompkins have incredible chemistry together. So I decided to give it a listen while I was road tripping, and it's awesome. What do you guys think?
The first thing that stood out to me is their chemistry. Is like there was no downtime, and it didn't feel like they were trying to fill time. You know what I mean? Like there was always something, and it also didn't sound like there was a lot of structure, which that's was also impressive, because usually when there's not a lot of downtime, it's because there's a really good structure and flow. And, there's a list of, okay, now we're going to talk about this and this and this. And no, this was just sounded like three friends just talking about childhood and things that they enjoy and playing games and stuff like that. But yet somehow it just felt seamless, and it was great.
I completely agree. There are some things that they just have banter down. So there's so many shows that they're like, okay, we want to have 10 minutes of just a little light banter at the beginning. And then you're just like, why does this feel weird?
It just feels forced sometimes. And this did not.
It is the opposite of that. This is three people that are great at talking to each other. I know that seems like a weird skill set, but you can hear it when it happens. And it just, for people who like listening to talk radio or things like that, where you just have these conversations that you get to listen in on, this is an absolutely fantastic version of that type of conversation, because they're all hilarious. Throughout the episode, they were talking about things that make you think about your childhood. Well, on this one specifically, that's when they were talking about this stuff, it definitely took me back there. And also, do you guys remember that show? I think it was on VH1, where it'd be like, they would like look back on like a year. I cannot remember what that was called. Was Paul F Tompkins on that?
He was in he said
what was that show called? That's going to drive me nuts.
I love
the 90s or whatever. And I remember him as like kind of, because he had that mustache still, and like I remember his face. And so it was funny to hear him talk. But yeah, in general, you think when they have zero prompting, okay, at some point the show has to have like a pause of some kind of okay, we're going to reset the conversation and get it back on course. It didn't once. They had an organic conversation for an hour, and it was great.
Yeah. I'm always so impressed because, and they all have extensive improv comedy backgrounds. Like Paul F Tompkins had multiple improvised podcasts. He did Super Ego, Dead Authors Society, Spontaneation, and Super Ego. And Lauren Lapkus has been like a mainstay at the Upright Citizens Brigade in Los Angeles and New York forever. She's on this team called Wild Horses. It's like the only all woman cast, and it's super great. And Scott Aukerman obviously has been doing Comedy Bang Bang / Comedy Death Ray, worked on Mr. Show, did all that stuff, and that's where he met Paul F Tompkins. But dude, it's just like, what I loved about it is they're so good at bringing you in on it. You know, they're definitely having a freeform conversation, but they're such good performers that like they make it interesting but it seems seamless, or it seems effortless, I should say.
And really, that was the most impressive thing to me, is how just organic it sounds. You're like, it takes a skill set, a weird skill set. Like I said earlier, it's a weird skill set, but it is a crazy skill set to be able to develop, because we never talk trash about like shows, really. You know, we like to really bring shows that we like to listen to. But through that process, we listen to a lot of shows that don't hit the mark for us. And Kirk and I have had a lot of conversations where it's essentially, okay, it felt weird. As they were talking, these conversations felt weird and forced. And it's like they're trying to make jokes and they're not really landing, and everybody's just kind of sitting there. That is kind of the polar opposite of this. And you hear them talking, and it really does feel like you're just kind of like sitting around somewhere talking with your friends. And I don't know these people. These are all famous people.
I think they
talk about such relatable things.
The trick is when you've got this and you've got a chemistry, it feels like you're part of the conversation. And when there's not that chemistry, or it feels forced, or there's not this seamlessness to it, it feels like you're like listening into a conversation that you're not a part of. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, and
I can see that.
You feel weird. Like you're like, I shouldn't be listening to this. You know, they're not talking to me. This isn't for me.
It could just be me, but there's definitely times where I hear one of the things they talked about that I definitely thought about, when I hear celebrities talking about like their day jobs before they like become famous. It always kind of is like this humanizing moment for me, and like this disconnect, because you like I said, I've seen Paul F Tompkins on TV for forever. You know, they're all very successful in their fields. And so you start hearing them talk about, okay, what was it like when you quit a job and could never go back? And Paul F Tompkins got fired and was literally told never come back here. So that was his move. But I was curious about this with you guys. Did you guys ever quit somewhere and just like, okay, I can never be here again? Like, I'm not gonna go by. I'm not going to do anything like that. Because I remember I worked at I think farmer's market, and I was getting paid very little money. Like, I think it was like $8.50 or something. And I was like, it was very intense labor as well. And I quit to go get another job. And I mean, I talked to them all the right way and everything like that, but I felt like they were kind of just like disappointed in me. And as I was quitting, the boss, the owner, was like, I was about to give you more responsibilities. I was like, coulda, woulda, shoulda. Like, I'm not, like, you sell me this as I'm leaving, you know, it's nothing. But
I could have paid you $9 an hour.
Yeah. You would have had a lot more work with,
and I would have given you a pallet jack. You could have used the pallet jack.
No, he wasn't about that.
Boxes.
No, I'm just kidding. but like, it was just like, okay, well, I don't even know why I feel awkward about this, but I do. And I've literally never stepped foot in there since. And
I didn't know that. You haven't been there since.
I have not been back
since. Where was it? What is it?
You actually probably know it, but I don't. This is not at all a knock on this place. This is just my experience there. It's called Parksdale Farms, the farmers market out there in Plant City. They're famous with old people for sure, because they make dynamite strawberry milkshakes and strawberry everything. It is
a very old person thing.
It is.
And it's near the interstate, so all the presidents stop there when they're going down.
The only president that hasn't stopped there in the past like 30 years is the most recent one before right now. He did not come by.
I think Obama? That everyone would have wanted to give him kisses there. So
yeah, it would have, based on the people I was working with, it would have been an unpleasant trip for him.
Maybe not the people working there.
But yes, the people visiting there would have loved it. Yes, that I could see that being true. But yeah, no, I never went back.
I had one when I lived in Burbank, California. This is more just super awkward. I tutored a kid in, 10th grade geometry or something. And it was fine. But like, I'm pretty good at math. Like, calculus honors is where I capped my knowledge. But I tutored him and it was going fine. And the dad's just like, he's, he doesn't have a lot of friends. I want you to like tutor him and like also just kind of like hang out with him. I was like, okay. And there came this point where like it took me too long to do the problems, and like I couldn't figure them out anymore. And I was like, dude, I would bring home the work and like do it at home. I gave myself homework. Yeah. And at that moment I was like, I gotta tell his dad that I am not helping him anymore. Like I'm more than happy to, but I am not helping him. There's no help to be had. And I had to confront him and be like, hey, I don't know this stuff.
Did you tell him that you can at least continue paying you to be his friend?
There is options for you, though.
Yeah, and I made sure the kid knew that I asked that. So you'll pay me to be his friend and only no, no. But it was so awkward because he was like, "Oh, bummer," but yeah, I guess here's your check for this one. I'm like, man, what a great gig. Obviously, this was at a house, so I never went.
Yeah, I was going to say,
it's pretty easy to avoid it.
Maybe be more weird if you would have returned.
Yeah, just like, hey, man, just coming to hang out off the clock.
Hey, here you are in La Tuna Canyon, way out of the way of everything. Hello, how's your son doing?
Yeah, that would have been the worst move in that case.
Hey, you want to hang out? You ain't going to pay me this time.
I felt so ashamed after that.
But yeah, no, it was just really funny to me how they kind of.
You're not going to let me
things.
answer mine?
Yeah,
I didn't know if you had one.
So rude.
What was
God,
your
Zach, I'm sad now.
Oh, he doesn't have one, does he?
There it is. Yeah, you found the soundboard.
I always knew it was here.
Oh man. No, I put my 2 weeks in when I was working at Lowe's. It was my second job. I had just had my first kid. It was my second job. And I was still farming at the time. And they'd changed our hours. So I'd already put my 2 weeks in. And I was working in the afternoon after working at the farm. And I would unload the trucks at night. So my shift usually didn't start till like 8 or 9.
Oh.
And then they were like, oh, well, we need you guys to stock before you unload the truck. So they moved our shift to like 3 till like 10, or like 11. And so I remember this was the problem is I knew the manager's phone number. And I guess it was like during a visit from corporate. So like I didn't, now looking back, I was like, God, I'm an idiot. I was supposed to go in and I was still on the tractor at work. I'm like, I can't keep doing this. I already put my 2 weeks in. I can't work 2 weeks, going in at 2 or 3 o'clock when I've still got stuff to do at the farm. So I call him. I'm like, hey, how's the tour going to the corporate? He's like, yeah, it's going fine. Can I help you? And this is like the boss of the Lowe's here. And I'm like, yeah, I'm not going to work there anymore because you guys changed. I was like, don't ever, you're never going to work for another Lowe's in your life. I'm like, okay, I wasn't planning on it.
That's a weird flex.
Oh, he was so mad. And I didn't go for a little bit, but it's Lowe's, so I still ended up going later.
Is he still
not
there?
Even the manager anymore.
Oh, okay. Did he get demoted?
I don't know.
Yeah, he had to take your job.
He had to
how that worked.
Like, well, you lost that guy, so guess who's taking that position?
No, that's what I love about their things is there's something in improv called no gap dialogue, and they're so good at it because they know when something is interesting and when something's floundering. And you'll notice it, how they just ask these questions of each other. Have you ever done this? What was a place that you've never gone back to that wasn't a job? And it was like these next steps that they just kind of put in the back of their mind so that whenever there's a lull, they go boom and ask that crazy, awesome question that just because they're great performers, they're like, they're going to find gold somewhere, just like we just did.
We're very generous with ourselves.
Yes. I platinum. We didn't even mine for gold. We mined for Bitcoin.
But I don't know. It's just all of it was. It took me back because they started talking about like the scary house in their neighborhood, and they talked about like exploring around as kids, and that. I mean, we weren't super allowed to explore, and I think that kind of ended because I really think that there was one moment where we were not allowed to explore for a really long time. We went in our front yard, and I had 2 brothers, and we were all out there. We had to be like 4, 5, 6, very young, and we had played that game Paperboy on SNES. You know what I'm talking about, where you throw the newspapers in the mailboxes as you're driving down the street. And so we replicated that in real life. We waited for a car to drive past us, and we nailed it with a newspaper. And the guy slammed on his brakes, and we all like freaked out. Obviously, I'm sure he saw 3 little kids scream their heads off and sprint towards the door. And then my mom was very upset, and like she wouldn't even let us in the front yard for several years after that. It's just like, you have lost being around people privileges. Go in the back.
Oh man. Yeah. I feel like my childhood was never like that, where I never lived in a subdivision either. Like I lived out in the country where there wasn't like a neighborhood for me to explore. It was, I have the woods and a lake, and you know, I might get bit by a rattlesnake, but I'm not going to be able to do anything fun and like that. So yeah, my childhood was a little different. None of that happened until we were like in middle school and high school. And then it got stupid, on a different level. Yeah, we probably shouldn't have been.
No, and really the problem is he was introduced to us, and we lived in a neighborhood. And so then he got into the same shenanigans we did.
Like the opposite of the being ashamed of leaving a job that your mom had to go through.
Yeah, pretty much.
God, I don't want them out in the front yard. I am so embarrassed to be here.
Yeah,
I think your mom still was like that, but we were big enough that she couldn't lock us in the backyard anymore.
Yeah, pretty much. If she was able to, she probably would have. She probably would have known it was for our like best interest.
How much did everybody on your street where you live just kind of hate us? Or at least think we're idiots.
Varies.
I don't think that we bothered people that bad on your street, but they would see us do really stupid stuff.
Yeah, we were idiots, but we didn't affect their property. You see what I mean? So yes, we were idiots around. They could look out the window. We would go down your
cul-de-sac being in a shopping cart being pulled behind someone's truck, or we would climb telephone poles with
the bike jousting was intense, and that's where people really got messed up. So bike jousting, you grab a trash can lid, you grab a broom, and you ride your bike, and you joust. But I mean, the plus side of bike jousting is the perfect shot on bike jousting is through the spokes, because somebody's about to lose it. Somebody's about to really eat it. And so there was at least one mailbox destroyed by that. And there was at least one person destroyed by a mailbox. So one mailbox was just a mailbox on a stick. The other one was like one of those like paved mailboxes that had like the stucco all around it, and that caused damage to the rider.
Okay, I guess we did take a few mailboxes out on your neighborhood, because I took one out on accident too. We were riding bikes down that side street at night, and I was going as fast as I could, and it was a black mailbox, and luckily it was one of those ones that was just like a metal pole that's not very strong holding it up. And I hit that thing so hard, the bike disappeared out from under me, and I'm just flying through the air. And I remember the next morning I had to go over there and be like, "Here is your dead mailbox. I'm sorry. I will pay for it."
Have you seen my bike?
Was that my next door neighbors?
Yes.
Yeah, they actually liked our shenanigans. So there was.
I was going to say, I imagine you guys are like prepping shenanigans, and people are like whipping out their lawn chairs, and they're like, "Oh, we got a show."
Honestly, it was extremely stupid.
It had to have been entertaining. I mean, I don't know. There'd be like hurricanes coming through, and we're standing on your wall, like in our very short underwear, and I'd be in my freaking Speedo and like yelling at the wind like Florida Man.
And I think Skiles might have lived behind me at the time too. So then there was added our choir teacher from growing up in high school was living adjacent to me basically. And so we could stand on top of my fence and yell at him directly. And so there was a lot of stupidity around that. I definitely remember one guy got a tree stand, one of the ones that you could kind of like shimmy up a tree, and he climbed all the way up the telephone pole that was in our neighbor's yard. So our neighbors literally came home while he was up there.
They came home while in their yard, the telephone pole.
No,
And
but
we all ran away, and he just watched.
he just like waved at him, and the guy's like,
up, like, what the hell is this kid doing?
yeah, the guy just looked up. He's like, okay, I'm just going to go inside. They're not really doing anything. But yeah, the next door neighbors were fine. The closest ones, they actually, as I got like older, we started collecting musical instruments in the garage, and we ended up having a really bad garage band. And they said that they would just sit out there. I think there might have been some relaxing substances involved on their end. And they would sit in their back porch and just listen to us wail away in my garage. So they really did appreciate our stupidity, and I appreciate them for that.
That's great. What do you guys think of the game? The game they play.
I love this as a premise.
This is such a dumb game.
You want to explain the game to him, Matt?
Yeah, what was it? It was called I Have Bad Tunes or something.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Yeah. So the premise of this game, it's basically an improv game, but I should also say they do these things at the end of every episode. The only bit of structure is this is a threecher, which is a feature, but with the word 3 in front of it because there's 3 of them. But they're improv games that get submitted to them either by their audio engineer or fans. And this one was you give the scenario of what the bad news is, and this person has to deliver this news in the style of a song that the other person chooses. So in this one, what was it? It was he had to amputate a guy's legs to the tune of Billy Joel's what is it? For the Longest Time.
For the Longest time.
And the other one was...
That was Paul F. Tompkins that did that one, right?
Yes.
Because his was the best by far. And obviously he's just so good at at improv. Like, he literally was writing the song on the go, and it was great. It was so good.
I am sorry to tell you this news. I have to cut off both of your legs. So stupid. And Lauren Lapkus's was the
person's
Paradise
house
City.
had caught on fire.
And the car exploded. To the tune of Paradise City, which, honestly, when I listened to this the first time, I did not realize that this was Paradise City by Guns N' Roses. I thought this was some weird, like, Depeche Mode song, the way she was singing it.
That's a hard song to do any news to.
Yeah. What I love about it is they don't care. They do the game to the extent that they can, and they're not doing it right, or they're doing it right, but they're not trying to do it right. Like Lauren Lapkus is just dying laughing because it's so funny to be like, your car exploded and it's gonna blow up, and it's I can't even like imitate how she did it. It was so funny.
But yeah, that's an absolutely great kind of road trip binge podcast. And so if you're ever looking to just hear really funny people have a great conversation, this is a great recommendation for that.
1000%.
Real fun. And remember,
nope,
just kidding.
Nope, not yet. So I do have a recommendation for next week. And this is a show that both Kirk and I had talked about for a little bit, just off and on. We wanted to talk about it at some point. It's called Just the Zoo of Us. And each week they break down a specific animal in crazy detail. They teach you all about the cool stuff. And I am about to recommend the one episode that I've ever found that isn't about an animal, but I'm doing it because a friend of the show, a buddy of ours, Dr. Vikram Baliga from the show Planthropology, guest hosted or guest starred on one of their shows. And so the one I'm going to recommend is episode 102 called Plants with Dr. Vikram Baliga. So we're going to learn all about cool adaptations that plants have made from the doctor himself.
Sweet. I'm excited.
Oh, yeah, he's a doctor now, so we can call him the doctor. He's the plant doctor.
Yeah. And not like Dr. Pepper doctor, like a doctor.
Like,
he's got a doctorate.
Rubbing the paddles together and like, Breathe, damn it, breathe.
Yeah, to plants. So they're all looking at him so weird because he's trying to resuscitate plants. They don't know what's happening.
Clear. Just catches on fire.
But yeah, it's going to be a really great show. It's not typical of all their episodes, but in a way it is. It's a really fun show. So I hope you guys like it.
And remember,
there's always more to discover.
This was a podcast from the Podfix Network. You can check out more shows like it at podfixnetwork.com.